We all know the story. After World War II, the United States' passenger rail was failing. So in 1971, the government created Amtrak. 6 years later, Canada's government looked at it and said, we want to do that too. And that's how we got Via Rail. Like with many things about Canada, Via Rail is very similar to Amtrak in a lot of ways. It's operated pretty similarly, it even uses some of the same equipment. But when there's so many similarities between Via and Amtrak, I really want to see what the differences are. I've ridden Amtrak my whole life, ever since I was 4, but I've never been on Via before. So today, we're going to explore what's it like to ride Via as a longtime Amtrak rider. So let's go. Here's our station in Aldershot, Ontario. Today we're going to be riding the Via Rail corridor service, which goes from Windsor to Quebec City, serving places such as Toronto and Montreal, although we're only riding it as far as Toronto. Interestingly, the Via Rail corridor, unlike the Amtrak Northeast corridor, has several different branches to different places like Quebec City, as well as Ottawa. Here's a primary GO Transit concourse. For Via Rail, you head in here. A couple of differences you'll notice right off the bat. Via Rail requires vaccination before boarding, which is not the case for Amtrak. According to our departure board, our train to Toronto is leaving at 12:35, which is about 11 minutes behind schedule. Not too bad for Via Rail, from what I've heard. So we have a tiny convenience store and a little waiting area. And the station clock is set 5 minutes fast, so you can make sure you're on the platform on time. Also, I'm glad to see that face coverings are still mandatory around here. That's another difference between here and Amtrak. You know, I can tell this isn't Amtrak because if this was, you'd hear, "Attention please! This is a last call for," and insert train number here. Although we're in Canada, so it might be more like, "Attention s'il vous plaît!" Something something. I don't speak French.
Votre attention s'il vous plaît. Dernier appel pour l'embarquement du train Via numéro 72 à destination.
Gotta say, I like these cars a lot more than the Am fleets. The seats are pretty comfy. I can't really show you my seat because I'm sitting in it. But I believe they recline. Where's the recline control? Okay, I don't think they actually recline. I looked around, but I couldn't find a control. But there is a charging port right here. It is in the center instead of on the side, like on Amtrak. Seat back pocket, we got a menu for the cafe car. Got a safety information card. And we have a trash bag, which is unique to Via. Wow, I did not realize the Via Rail corridor trains went this fast. That is miles per hour, right? Yeah. One thing I didn't realize about the boarding process, which I probably would have realized had I done my research, is that you actually have to show your vaccine card before you get on the train. It's not just a sort of nominal policy. You literally have to prove that you're fully vaccinated before you board a Via Rail train. So I had to dig up my vaccine card on the platform while everyone was waiting. Yeah, pro tip, do your research before you travel. Also, these windows have curtains, sort of like on the Acela. Got a tray table here. The latch is kind of unique. Doesn't really pull out, but it's a decent amount of surface area. Got some lights overhead. Also, my seatmate tells me that instead of a cafe car here on the Via Rail corridor trains, they have a trolley that they push up and down the center aisle with food and drinks for purchase. I've seen this done on British trains as well, and honestly, I think it's something that Amtrak should implement. It's a lot more convenient for people than getting up and going to the cafe car, and seems to be kind of a standard practice on most other services. We are now on the Wi-Fi, and if I wanted to book my comeback from Aldershot to Toronto, or tomorrow, this is what it would look like. First of all, I am still a youth, according to Via Rail, which is a pretty big difference in Amtrak, which would consider me an adult. If we click on link to find trains, once we get to the list of available trains, we can see something kind of surprising. Most of these are not Via Rail, but rather GO Transit. That's because Via Rail actually connects with GO Transit to display their trains on the website as well. It even shows the price. And then it allows you to compare that to traveling by VIA. And taking GO Transit would put you at about an hour and 5 minutes between Aldershot and Toronto, whereas Via Rail is only about 39 minutes. I wonder what the Amtrak website would look like if it also displayed commuter rail. The Northeast Corridor would probably result in a lot of search results. If one was to take Via Rail between Aldershot and Toronto, and if you're a youth like me, the trip would cost 23 Canadian dollars, which is 18.07 United States dollars. By comparison, Lancaster to Harrisburg on Amtrak is about $12, and that's almost the exact same distance, 39 miles rather than 36 miles. I won't show you the whole booking process here, but I actually had to create an account with Via Rail, while Amtrak lets you purchase tickets as a guest. Additionally, Via Rail tickets actually assign you a seat, whereas Amtrak only does that on the Acela. Okay, so I did a little bit of research, and I realized why this train reminds me of the Acela. These cars used to be part of something called the LRC train, or Light, Rapid, Comfortable. These trains were used on the Via Rail corridor for a time in the 80s and 90s, and the locomotives that went with them are now retired, so they're being pulled by standard Genesis and F40PH locomotives. But the design of the LRC train ended up influencing that of the Acela. So you have the same sort of angled sides, big windows, stuff like that. And with minutes to go until Union Station, I finally found the recline control. Let's check it out. Oh wow, pretty good. Besides the seat pushing forward though, so then you have less leg room. But, you know, you win some, you lose some. Here's a quick look at the menu. You can pause the video and read it if you want. Gotta say, this would be a great first look at Toronto if you're arriving from another city. Here's a quick look at the seat. This is my seatmate just got up. Looks like there's luggage racks at the end of each car. It's a bit more akin to the Superliners than the Amfleets, but I like it. And there's like a little kitchenette, almost like on the back of an airplane. And here we are on the platform. This is our LRV coach. Not LRV, LRC. That's right. LRV is light rail vehicle. And here's our engine, very similar to those found on Amtrak's non-electrified trains. The escalator takes us down to this arrivals concourse here in Union Station. Bit of a designated waiting area here. I guess this is a general boarding area. And then here we have the Great Hall, which is pretty great, if you ask me. You've got the flags of the different provinces here. And the Via Rail arrivals and departures boards. And that brings us to the end of our adventure here in Toronto. I really enjoyed my time on Via Rail. The coaches were really cool, the seats were pretty comfy, and the train was surprisingly fast and only about 10 minutes late. I've heard sometimes the corridor trains can get quite a bit delayed, but ours was not, thankfully. Canada has apparently figured out how to do Amtrak, at least as well as Amtrak. Now I hope that eventually they'll end up building some kind of electrification from here to Montreal at least, or something along those lines. But for now, signing off from Toronto. Take care, be sure to subscribe, and yeah, toodles.